Hi everyone, welcome to LectoraLive, your inside track into Lectora. Today, it's all about voices. Voices, e-learning, and more. Here we go. And we're back. One of the things that's really important in e-learning development and media development on the whole is having good sound and good voices. And with us today, we've got two gentlemen from a company that I know, and I know people who work with them. It is GM Voices out of Atlanta, Georgia. Hi guys, we have with us Marcus Graham. He is the CEO of the company, and Jay Steinworth, who is the Director of Business Development. Hi guys, how are you today?
Great.
Fine.
Good to be here.
I'm glad you guys could make it. And Jay, we met at the Lectora User Conference about a month ago.
Yes, that was my first Lectora User Conference, and it was really quite engaging, and I learned a lot.
Now, how did you guys get started in the business with GM Voices?
If you go back about 30 years ago, I was dabbling with voiceover. Prior to that, I had worked in college radio at Georgia State University and really fell in love with audio production and voiceover and that type of thing. And then I got involved in radio for a little while, and I was always kind of dabbling with voiceover. Then the early 80s, I noticed that the recordings on most phones didn't sound good. They were, thank you for calling. We are not available to take your call, that kind of thing. And so I went to my buddy's studio and recorded it, and I'd call the company and say, hey, I can make your recording sound better. And then I would play a sample for them of what they had and then what I did in my buddy's studio, and it kind of got started from there.
That's great. Now, you have some really good talent on board. I've seen, I've heard a lot of the voices that you guys have, and one of my friends, Linda Joy, just said she's on the roster now with you guys, so I was pretty happy to hear that. How do you go about finding such good talent?
Well, it's gotten a lot easier over the years. We've been doing it for so long, but in the early days, it was mainly voice talent, voice actors that were here in Atlanta, and then over time, we expanded the geographic boundaries, I guess, because with ISDN technology, we could do voiceover sessions really, most cities around the world, and so it expanded dramatically. And then basically, we were looking for different sounds that people had because as a provider, we wanted to go to our customer and provide multiple voices so they could pick the voice they thought was right for their brand and their messaging. And so that's how we kind of got started, and we grew. Today, I think we've got a little over 900 voice actors that we work with and through our organization. And but it's there's some voices that sound similar to ones that we already have, so we would be less likely to build them into our system. But we got a pretty good diversity.
Well, also, I noticed that you do one thing that a lot of people don't offer, and that's you have full international coverage too, different languages, different talents around the world. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you from a history perspective, the way we got into that is in the early days, in the 80s and 90s, voicemail companies needed voice prompts for their systems, and we began to do that kind of work for them. And we would do it in English, and then they would sell a system in Mexico or up in Canada, and they'd say, hey, we need Spanish, we need French Canadian, and then we sold some in Europe, and they would come to us, and then, so we sought out those voices, and then of course translation capabilities to be able to do that, because we just wanted to be able to provide a solution to the technology provider, so no matter where they sold their product, we could help them localize it, and that became a big part of our business today.
What part of the business do you see as one of the largest growing segments?
We're doing a lot of international languages for companies that are producing e-learning type applications that they're providing through partners in other parts of the world. And it's really hard to do that effectively in individual countries. If you're selling products in 20 countries, for example, it's very hard to do that. But we actually have talent and translation, localization experts that we work with all over the country. So no matter where they need to take their multimedia to support their product sales, we can easily take their English multimedia or video, and then we can sync it and make it work with really any language. And so that all they have to do is to give us the English, and then we can provide it to them in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 languages if they need it, if they've
That's
got
nice.
Worldwide distribution.
Yeah, and I was surprised when you said that is one of the largest growing segments. Something you don't think about when you're dealing with local companies or anything else. You start getting into the multinationals, it's not just English. They do a lot of times it is English, but it's also 10 other languages, depending where they're at. We've had occasional needs to do that with 3 or 4 languages. Usually it's French, Spanish, maybe German, and it can be trying at times. So it's easier to have somebody like you do it than us have to go, okay, now we haven't done those languages before. What do we do?
Yeah, a lot of the examples of how we'll get new relationships started is a lot of times doing the typical languages: Spanish, French, Canadian, German, French, and the like. Those are pretty easy to do, but a lot of times when the customer comes to you and says, I have to have a Yupik or I have to have Sinhalese, these are languages that typically most companies aren't really set up to do, and because of the volume of work that we do, we do over 100 languages and dialects now, and we can readily do those pretty easily, quickly, and economically, and so that's a big part of our value proposition to the market.
Now, because there may be some voiceover talents watching this right now, how would they go about applying to become a voiceover talent with your organization?
Well, let me go through the process of how you would submit a demo. Every month we get together the creative team and listen to all the demos that have been sent to us by voice talent all over the world. And then, so we listen to those, we grade them, we identify them, and then we see which are the ones that we think might fit in our current mix of voice actors, typically that maybe has a different sound. And then we will say, okay, let's talk to this voice talent, or we'll thank everybody for submitting a demo. But then we go through and if we think they've got the right sound, then we'll call them up and talk to them and tell them a little bit about our business and how we operate, and they would like to invite them to do an audition. And in the audition, we go in and act like we're doing a real job, so that they actually go through all the paces of the things that we do, the types of direction that we would want to be able to do for a client. Then we get into a business discussion of how we do business day in and day out, and if we're able to do that and come to an agreement with how we operate on the business side, then we would work them into our system, would come up with a promotion of sorts so that our sales team could present the voice when it comes up, for when that particular voice or language comes up. There's always a lot of talent samples coming in, and we like getting them because we always need them.
That's good. And it's amazing what, when you do that, what appears every so often. You get somebody to go, wow, that was a great voice. I needed that one. And a lot of times, I believe in they just happen to show up at the right time. It's like,
Also, too, the reason that we started doing that, when I started originally, I was the only voice talent, but I could tell that a lot of times people didn't. If I was going out and meeting with them face to face, they didn't want to say they didn't like my voice. They want to hurt my feelings, right? and so voice is very subjective.
Yep.
And then so what we do is we're really about the process. So we're not married to the voice. Now the voices are very important, but ultimately it's up to the client. Somebody at the client site has to ultimately say, hey, that's the voice we want to use for X amount of reasons, branding and so forth. And then they have to choose that voice. And so what we do is to provide options to make that easy. All the business stuff's handled, all the technology stuff is handled, and it works works pretty well.
Well, Marcus, that sounds like a good process all the way around. Now, you guys are in one of your studios right now. What makes a typical studio for you?
Well, interestingly enough, only about 7% of the sessions that we record every year on a yearly basis is the talent really in our studios here in Atlanta.
Right.
So 93% of the time, the talent is in LA, New York, Tokyo, London, Toronto, and places like that. And the way it works for lay people, we have ISDN lines is what they're called, and TV and radio stations have been doing this for years. And so if we have a talent that's operating out of New York, for example, and she has a studio, she's talking into the microphone, and it goes down these banded ISDN lines, then it comes to our facility here in Atlanta, and then we take that full bandwidth audio, which was compressed where the microphone was, and then it expands over here. So we're recording real time while the talent's talking in New York or any of these other cities that I mentioned. And so what it did is it really took all the geographic boundaries away from recruiting voices, because you can be anywhere. And like I said, 93% of the orders that we process, the talent is located somewhere other than Atlanta.
Yeah, and ISDN's still around. Somebody asked me the other day, "What's ISDN?" It's a format that's still around. Everybody's thinking of cable.
Actually, there's something happening on that now, because we're moving to IP. We're doing more sessions with IP. There's an IP version of that now. We've been testing it for several years. It's really gotten good enough to where you can use it.
Do you ever have problems locating voiceover talent, or do you usually, with the large library of people you have, do you have a pretty easy way to solve people's problems?
We specialize in helping companies craft a persona or identify the persona that they want for their company or for their project or for their video, and that's an important professional services component that we offer as a voice studio.
So when people have a project need, let's say there's a company, a large multinational, they need to do 20 courses, for example. They would come to you, and then you'd negotiate how much, who, and everything else. It sounds like you help them through the process as well, not just that what we call a body shop here. Just throw a voice at it, you're done.
A lot involved on the front end before you even go to record. We help with the scripting. All questions are answered ahead of time as much as possible.
Well, I think, yes, all customer focused. So it's really about, and we'll have clients that have different levels of engagement where they want to get their hands all in everything that we're doing. Coach the talent, be involved in auditioning talent, and that kind of thing. And then the vast majority of clients that we use, particularly when it comes to the international languages, is they just throw it over the wall to us because they know that we'll handle it and do it effectively. Oftentimes, particularly when it comes to translations, a client may be doing, let's say it's German, for example, and there's a gal that works there that lived in Germany, grew up in Germany, but's been over here for 7 or 8 years. And then, so we'll provide the translation, and then it'll come back and say, oh, there's a problem with it. And then we say, well, what was the problem? And if that's communicated to us, then we go through and explain why we did it the way we did it. And these are professional translators and linguists that we're working with. So what ends up happening is that the client just throws it over to us because they know that we're going to do it effectively because we have all of those quality controls built into our process. And just to give you an idea, in 2015, we recorded 6.3 million words in over 4,000 recording sessions. So we do about 80 sessions a week. And it's a pretty busy place around here. So the process is king. And that's how we work with very good talent, so real high quality, but we manage the process by bundling these sessions and really keep the cost low, and then with real fast turnaround. And that's really what our clients like. It really works well.
Do you folks offer also the service to QA the script against what the voiceover talent is doing? Because that's a part that everybody struggles with, that you can have it recorded by somebody, but how do we know it's right?
We ensure authenticity both on the localization and translation side, because you have the same aspects. Maybe they don't have an expert or a linguist in that language. Same thing with the voice piece. That is on us. We do like to try to engage the customer as much as possible to get some buy-in on their side.
It's important to note that doing languages is not an exact science, and so there's a good bit of art involved in it. And sometimes, give you a good example, if you were taking a tennis shoe. You're doing some type of application for a company in Romania that has a tennis shoe. The original tennis shoe that really took over in the market in Romania, the brand name of it became a generic name for it. So we call them sneakers.
Right.
And you know what they call tennis shoes in Romania. They call them Adidas.
Adidas. That's true.
Adidas was the first one to the market, and that's what everybody came to reference it. And then, so Nike comes in and wants to say, how would you promote this? And they'd say, well, we'd say the Nike Adidas is really good because that's the word for tennis shoe over there.
This is great. I think you guys are running a great business from everything it sounds like. And some of the services you're offering are priceless. If you haven't done that kind of localization work out there, it's not easy. You gotta know what you're doing. And there's a lot of companies who fail trying to do it as amateurs. And it's one of those, if you don't understand the languages, you're gonna open that little black hole of issues. And when you get sucked in, you won't enjoy where you wind up. So it's a good thing. So I think you guys are offering a very good service in terms of not only the pre and post production. So that's very good stuff. And I've met a lot of other voiceover companies that don't do this. So that's one thing I find very special about you guys. And they're not paying me to say this, by the way.
Well, we don't consider ourselves a voiceover company. We're more of a professional services company that specializes in voice production as one of our pieces, and for many different types of areas.
Yeah, and I think it shows. So,
thank you. Yeah, it's important to note about half of our revenue is non-English.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm. Actually, maybe more than that. No.
Slightly more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it may even grow more in the future the way things are going. So that'll be.
Oh yeah, well, I mean the world's getting smaller because of technology, and traveling by air is so easy now, and if you're not doing business in other parts of the world, I guess it depends on what you do, but ultimately there's the big part of the profit and success in companies nowadays is being able to take their products and services to other parts of the world, and so we just play that part on that local market, presentation.
That's great. If people want to get a hold of you for whatever reason, whether to be a voiceover talent or to hire your services, what's the best way to do that?
Reach our website. We're gmvoices.com. If you click on Contact Us, you have everything there, and you'll see a link right away where it says, if you're a voice talent or want to be a voice talent, click here.
This is not a simple, it's performance art, it's acting.
It is.
It's being like we were talking about before we started about you got to be a good reader. You got to be able to read. If I have a session with a talent's going to read 6,000 words, we can't be redoing things over and over again. It's just not practical. And so they got to learn how to read right. It's about tonality. It's about character and intonation and those kind of things. And there's a whole lot of things that you got to do. So what I'm getting at, it's not easy. And and that one that I got wasn't a very good one. So
no, and that's really true. A lot of people, somebody tells them, "You have a nice voice."
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. I'm going to be a star. No.
I go to a lot of trade shows, and inevitable, someone is asking me, "How do I become a voice actor?" And they give me the card, and I got to give them the URL, and sometimes they actually follow through, and I'm not sure how far along they get to working in the back of the production house here, but it happens quite a bit.
Yeah, those are really good points. It is not easy to become a good voiceover star. One thing I would tell people, if you really want to do this and you're starting out and you've done nothing, go to LibriVox, read books for free, get practice. You're not going to get paid for it. You're doing some good, but you're also getting practice.
Yep.
And practice is worth.
Also, too, you can go on the web, and there's a gazillion voice talent demo sites online. And what I would encourage people to do is to go through and listen to the voice actors that are out there now, and just close your eyes and listen to it. And then, which ones do you like? Which ones are easy to listen to? That's really, really the key. And then those are the kind of folks that you want to, if you want to be a voice talent, you would aspire to, be or to learn from them.
Well, Marcus and Jay, it's been a real pleasure having you on. We're going to have your website and other information in our show notes so people can go, right from the video, can go to the links. And I look forward to doing some work with you in the future, too. I really like what you're doing and the approach you have. It's complete, which is nice.
Well, thanks. It's certainly great to be here, and thanks for sharing this with us. Is a great program you've got, and I want to dig in to learn more about some of your other podcasts and things. This is really interesting topics that you're covering. So that's
sure,
really cool.
We have several of them. More are coming. I'll send you some. We can talk offline too.
Sure.
Actually, hang on for a second. If you guys are watching, please subscribe, and we will be back next week. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I think we're